One of my favorite things about seeing creators' workspaces is how much they tell you about the person behind the artwork. Every desk, every tool, every mess, it all contributes to their story. I've always loved watching documentaries about other artists, especially animators and, of course, mangaka. To this day, my favorite one is The Kingdom of Dreams and Madness, a documentary following Studio Ghibli as they start, finish, and promote The Wind Rises. Recently, as part of my work with Global Comics, I visited the Art of Manga Exhibit at the Daeyoung Museum in San Francisco, California, and seeing original artwork and tools used by legendary mangaka like Rumiko Takahashi, Hirohiko Araki, Taito Kubo, Eiichiro Oda, Tatsuyo Chiba, and more just absolutely blew me away. And I didn't even mention all of the mangaka that are featured there. It also made me pause and rethink what this video was going to be about and how I wanted to approach it. Originally, it was going to focus on my workspace in a workspace tour kind of way. Something I then thought was too plain to be interesting. So instead, this video will tell the story behind ArtCrumbs, how I got here, why I create, and where I want to go next. My workspace is just one piece of that journey. I like to be mindful of what I keep in my spaces. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a minimalist, but I don't find joy in being surrounded by clutter and merch from shows that, while I enjoy, didn't really impact me on a deeper level. One of my most cherished items is a handmade doll from a friend over a decade ago, and inside is a rose quartz heart given to me by my very first therapist when I was moving away from home and going to art school. It reminds me to hold onto my peace and to stay in control of my emotions to the best that I can, and to never let anyone take that control and that peace away from me. This philosophy, if you will, shapes how I approach life as a mangaka and just as a person. I'm not perfect, but I value authenticity over appearing agreeable. It can be hard to do revisions after revision after revision, and sometimes I kind of feel like Sisyphus, or like I'm in this weird sort of revision personal purgatory, but I have to remind myself, and I do remind myself, that every single bit of feedback that I get is just potential for improvement. I carry the mindset of not getting attached to things necessarily into my artwork and even my lifestyle. I donate and give away items that no longer bring me joy, even if I want to love them. My manga collection, I feel, reflects my tastes. Fantastical, fantasy stories and supernatural themes, with my first mangas that I read being Shaman King, Yu Yu Hakusho, and Inuyasha in middle school. And around the same time, I had also seen Wolf's Rain on Adult Swim. I was really amazed by its more mature and even darker storytelling, as opposed to other things like Naruto or Inuyasha or Dragon Ball, which felt like it was focused on being optimistic and saving the world. Wolf's Rain is a somber story about grief and loss and helplessness as fate happens all around you, and you don't always get a happy ending. If you love stories like To Your Eternity, where the core idea is to think about existence and life and how we make things meaningful, then Wolf's Rain might be a really great fit for you. A few years later in high school, I watched The Sixth Sense, and it was a turning point for me in wanting to make stories. Its sudden change of perspective at the ending was something that, at the time, I didn't expect. Maybe if I had seen it as an adult, I might have been able to predict the ending, but immediately I watched it again, and that second watch felt like an entirely different story. 2 stories, 1 timeline. It was just a matter of perspective. And this largely inspires my own work today. It's a feeling that I want to replicate in others that engage with my work. And it's that confusion that turns into awe when you realize the rug has been pulled out from underneath you. Nothing is as you expected, but you enjoy it. I have a wide array of interests, and I feel like my art workspace displays that with all of the prints, fan art, books, pins, shikshi, fairy lights, and whiteboards that I have displayed around my room. And I love finding strange, interesting, and bizarre things to display there. I don't even have everything up on my walls yet. I still have so much stuff packed. And, sitting near windows allows me to see the world and to have breaks and watch life happen all around me, even if it's nothing spectacular, just people going about their day. Telling stories ultimately is what we do as mangaka, and it's just a replication of life, isn't it? And I think that one must live to be able to tell stories about living. I've mentioned some of the things that inspire my own work, and Godsbane, which is, I guess, my pet project, is all of those things. It's a story about grief, mourning, loss, pain, and how different people react to these things. It also asks a question that I don't think has a single right answer. When you are faced with a crisis, should you do the right thing for the situation, or should you do the best thing for the situation? Meaning, would you stick to society's morals, what the collective says is the right thing to do? Or would you go with what you think is the best thing to do, regardless of society's morals? Some characters, like Hokue, take as many chances as he can to do good and help others. His father disappeared after Hokue started studying magic, and his father sacrificed a lot to get him there. So he just likes helping people, even at the expense of himself, and he sees this as a duty that he must honor his father. It was the last thing that he ever did. But Hokue is also just a very good-natured person. Aros, however, my protagonist, becomes destructive and believes that the ends will always justify the means. He literally makes a deal to sacrifice 999 souls plus his making 1,000 to revive just one person who may or may not be even able to save the island. And do you think that this end result would justify the cost of those lives being lost? If it means that the danger of the island being burned down and destroyed, is it worth it to sacrifice 1,000 people to ensure it would never happen again, rather than this off and on of this god that's been attacking and terrorizing this island for millennia? Should we just sacrifice 1,000 people and then never have to deal with it ever again? This is the question that Aros asks himself, and he says, yes, it is worth it. Death and grief was something that I have never really been far away from, with me being a military child. It was something that I saw happened a lot on the news, and when my father was deployed, I would wonder if he was among the people that were attacked that day on the news. When would I see his name on the screen? Those phone calls that I got were so precious to me because it told me that he was still there. He was still alive. And sort of in addition, wondering, it's strange. Like as a child, I had to accept the idea that I may never see him again, and so these moments of interaction that I do get with him, I have to treat as if they are the most precious things in the world. And when you're a child, a literal child, sometimes it can be hard to appreciate those things. This is kind of the other side of the token, same thing, different perspective. My family did a lot of fishing, and when I was younger, I always cried that the fish had to be killed to be eaten. And stories like Wolf's Rain and Shaman King and Yu Yu Hakusho gave me some peace of mind that life is a cycle. Death doesn't have to be the end. It's merely one phase in our journeys within this universe. Sometimes I criticize myself for thinking these things, as it feels very meta, almost edgelord-esque, but that's just how I see the world, and this affects how I tell my stories. I want readers to confront their feelings and their thoughts of how they believe the world works or the universe works through my stories. When I sit at my desk and I'm writing or drawing, I have to confront them too. And that's the purpose of what I think I do. Processing things. I can finally be who I want to be, and I can feel what I want to feel. The workspace itself is 4 screens, a vertical monitor that typically houses my mood boards and my Clip Studio master page file. I have scripts on another screen, and then I have a Wacom Cintiq 16 where I do the actual drawing. I even have a Samsung Galaxy tablet, which would be the 4th screen, that I will use for YouTube or Spotify. That way it's kind of off to the side on its own. And for like super intense focus sessions, I may use a little MP3 player that just has music, or even an actual radio that I have, so that there are no distractions with flipping through YouTube channels or Spotify trying to find something to listen to. With the radio, you don't get to pick what's on. What's there is there, right? Man, like I didn't have internet until I was about 17, which was 2008 for me. And I miss those times. I miss not feeling obligated to participate in line. These days, I tend to stay kind of quiet and focus on sharing others' work rather than my own, while I keep my head down for my projects. And it's the workspace, and my habits are designed to try to keep me as efficient as possible, because I like talking. That's why I work in community management. I like meeting people. I like talking to people. I love getting into debates where I can play the devil's advocate and learn things. And so I need to be able to focus on my drawing and intentionally isolate myself. I'm just in a phase right now where I don't feel obligated to share anything out that I'm working on social media. I don't need to feel validation that people know I'm working my ass off. A Godsbane one-shot for an upcoming Kodansha Award is in progress. I have new work from Viz that I'm working on, commissions, my Patreon, YouTube channel. I am plenty busy behind the scenes. So just because you aren't seeing anything get posted for me doesn't mean I'm not working. But manga is known for being incredibly hard on a creator's health with how busy they are anyway, and so I think it makes sense that mangaka would want to isolate themselves to stay focused. It's a demanding and cruel, and it's a constant beast that needs to be fed. And so, like, why would I even want to make manga if I feel like I'm barely able to keep up with things now? Back in art school, when I was at Ringling, which was like 2012 through 2015, I was really struggling to find my footing, my identity, my voice as an artist. I'd come from a digital art background where I had just started really drawing in like 2008, 2009. And I wasn't really adapting well to traditional media until I started experimenting with ink. My illustration teacher, Gary Barker, saw something in my work, with ink specifically, and encouraged me to keep doing that, to keep exploring it. And at the time, I wasn't really focused on learning how to do illustration work. I was more focused on learning how to draw, like with basic skills, so that I could do storyboarding and animatics after I'd already earned a degree in animation, not comics. But then one day he asked me if I'd ever considered making comics. And I cannot remember for the life of me verbatim what I had said. Mr. Barker, if you're watching this, please tell me what exactly I said, because I hope I'm misremembering this, but it was something like, comics are dumb. So to this day, I still cringe thinking about it. Telling Gary Barker, who's been by now drawing Garfield for like 40 years, that comics are dumb. Not only has he worked on Garfield, he's done work for Hulk and Spider-Man and all kinds of amazing other things, right? And I just told him that comics are dumb. How cringe. But yeah, so he didn't get angry, thank God. But he did tell me to consider trying it. Try comics, see how you feel. And at that moment, the truth was that I loved manga, and I resented being told to make comics instead. I didn't realize at that time how connected comics and manga and animation were, and I didn't realize how much that this particular conversation that I had at that time would change me, because I was very much in a place where I didn't want to listen. I knew what I wanted, and I was only going to do those things. Wanting to make manga felt like a dirty thing at art school, and while Mr. Barker and a few others supported me, even other students chastised me for drawing it in my private books. Very rarely, or almost never, did I try to draw manga-style artwork in my assignments. However, even when I would show them my private sketchbooks, they'd be like, oh, well, that's too anime. You shouldn't draw like that. And it really sucked, feeling like I didn't have a lot of support. Because of that, I focused for a really long time on getting approval from all of my various professors and my peers. Things like painting and coloring and doing everything except study manga, which had become a bad word at that time. Manga was always so inspiring to the teachers and students, but they never allowed anyone to try to follow that path. And so I graduated very bitter and resentful at what I didn't accomplish, though I honestly had nobody to blame but myself. I had let others lead me away from what I thought I was put on this earth to do. I let others take my peace. I failed in the mission that I was given before I left Colorado. I also didn't bother to go to our 10-year graduation reunion just last month. I mean, it took me 3 years to recover from what I'd allowed to happen to me, and from 2015 to about 2018, I was not very productive, and it wasn't until I did an internship at Tokyopop in 2018 where loving manga and wanting to make manga was okay, and even encouraged and supported. And this journey that I had gone through affects how and what I surround myself with in order to keep me creative and inspired. Books upon documentaries, upon interviews of how to make manga, how to write. Even still, I love to learn about animation. One of my favorite books is Anime Effect: Flame, Water, Wind, Light, Smokes, and Others by Yoshida Toru. It's my personal belief that all comic creators and mangaka can become even better creators if they were to study the principles of animation. This particular book focuses on VFX, and it speaks to me in a way that I feel like other books can't, because I studied animation before I studied comics and manga. As much as I don't like giving her any airtime or even speaking about this, I feel like the best way that I can describe how I see the world and how I see art is the moving photos of Harry Potter's world. And when I see images, it's never just the drawing or the painting that I see in front of me. It's as if it's alive. The cooler water and gentle touch of the kelp, the dusty earthen air of an old tower, the warm breeze of a summer's day, and the sound of rustling grass in the wind. Maybe the gentle patter of a spitting, misty rain. In my mind, as a mangaka, I just pick the best frame of a shot that I think works best, and I will skip shots that I don't think work best to convey what is happening. When I am writing and doing my storyboards, I see a video in my mind, and sometimes if I'm sketching out thumbnails, I'll go, oh, I really like this action, but maybe I want what happened just before this, or what happened just after this. My mind thinks in frames rather than just in single individual actions. The potential for which frame I want to pick is always there. From here, I was going to share this long history about how things have been over the last year since Onami debuted, but it kind of felt like a rambling mess. So I'm just going to summarize it into these points and then kind of move on. Over the last year, I've been getting sick. I've been struggling with my memory. I've been struggling with my energy. I have fallen asleep in meetings. And so I've been dealing with blood work after specialist, after blood work, after specialist, after test, after test, after test, trying to figure out what this is. And as of a couple months ago, I was finally given a diagnosis of hypothyroidism, but we don't know what's causing it. And, which that explains all of my fatigue. It explains the muscle loss. It explains a lot of the vitamins that I'm really low in. And, it's just a thing I have to deal with now. I also, within the last year, have had some pets pass away, and just a general case of the sads. At the time, some of our family pets passed away. They were cats. I was working on a one-shot that had a cat as the main character, and this was a story that I had written all the way back in high school. And I was very excited to finally get to work on this story, but when the cat that I was planning to adopt passed away, I could not keep going. I told Hisashi-san about how I had been feeling in November, and he told me that it might be a good thing if I took a break and came back to manga when I was ready for it. But the feelings of wanting approval that I experienced at Ringling came creeping back to me. Here, I have the amazing privilege of getting to work with someone like Hisashi Sasaki, and how dare I walk away from it to have emotions and to grieve and to be a human being. It felt like I was betraying my younger self, who had worked so hard to get to this point. And I didn't want to focus on getting better. I wanted to focus on art and getting accomplishments, and I was so close to what I wanted. And I don't get joy from competing with people. I don't want to compete with anyone. I just want to focus on creating and learning and improving at my own pace. And so intentionally stepping aside to handle emotions, even now it's like hard to think about, but like stepping aside to process emotions felt like the deepest form of betrayal that I could do to myself. It felt like giving up. But I did what I felt was the best thing, and I stepped away. Kind of. I was really close to having the Godsbane Viz original submission completed. And so after a break in December and January, I focused on getting that done, getting it submitted. I was rejected, and that was another blow to me, because Godsbane is kind of my pet project. And after that, I couldn't work anymore. I got so depressed, and I was sick, and I was still in the heavy fatigue period, and so I let myself stop working. Like, I finally just was like, you know what? Okay, I'll give in. And in September, I went on a trip to the Art of Manga Exhibit, as I mentioned earlier, and I had the amazing pleasure to get to meet and talk with Yamazaki Mari, who has done a variety of different manga. But the story of hers that particularly stood out to me was the story of the Palmyra Syria manga that she did. And it was sort of that first spark that reminded me why I wanted to tell stories. Her art carried so much grief and beauty, and I could feel that. It was the sort of connection that I had always wanted to build with my own readers. And I even attended sort of like hour-long conversation about how she became a mangaka and how she studied, and she actually went there in person to this place, Palmyra, and that's what this manga does, is it tells the story of what this place used to be, and it's very short. It's a one-shot, but it was incredibly effective at communicating that emotion. Many of the exhibits at the museum were very inspiring, but not because they made me want to work harder to be as great as all of these mangaka. I mean, that would be cool, but I wanted to find a voice that is my own, and I think that is what I lost in the grief that I experienced at the end of 2024. I did not know what I wanted to do anymore. I did not know what I wanted to say, and the physical effects that I was dealing with was suffocating me. Seeing these works up close and reading the stories, reading all of the little descriptions next to the artwork was absolutely surreal. But I think the single most impactful moment for me was getting to see two sets or originals, maybe replicas, from Rumiko Takahashi. And while Yu Yu Hakusho and Shaman King were my first manga, Inuyasha was really the manga that made me want to make manga. I remember borrowing it from a friend and being confused that it was left to right, because that's not what I had read about. I was like, why is manga left to right? That's not correct. But it was normal back then for the early 2000s, but its art was beautiful. I loved its backgrounds, I loved its story, and it was more captivating to me than the others, and maybe it was because it had a female protagonist. But those pages, seeing those pages, originals, replicas, whatever, seeing them in front of me nearly 20 years after I had read it for the first time was such a surreal experience, and I was so glad that I was alone in that exhibit on press day, because I wanted to cry so badly. It was a full circle moment for me as I relived reading Inuyasha for the first time, thinking about that teenager who loved to read manga, and that person in college who decided to try to make manga and then abandoned it because people told me that I couldn't. And I, in that moment, standing there looking at these beautiful pages, beautiful color pages, I wished that I could tell her that it gets better. And 10 years from now, from this time in this college that tells you cannot do what you want to do, you will be working with an editor from Viz, and not just any editor, a former Weekly Shonen Jump editor. And you will hear some of the kindest and most uplifting words from a Kodansha editor, from the magazine that you would pick if you could. And you will make it. Just please don't give up. Just don't give up. That is something that I myself still needed to hear. And in that moment standing in front of that artwork. I realized that though I was hurting and tired, I wouldn't let my health stop me from making manga, that depression would not stop me, that this was just a personal winter. I don't even want an anime. I just want that book in my hand. And that young person that I wish I could tell don't give up to, she would be rooting for me. Traveling around the United States, seeing different conventions and meeting different people, hearing different perspectives. It's amazing the variety of creators that are out there, and I'm extremely privileged that my day job as a community manager for Global Comics affords me all of these opportunities, even if it means missing a weekend or maybe a whole week here or there of drawing to go to these events and be present. I think the other thing that really surprised me when I was at this Art of Manga exhibit was Hisashi-san was there. And I mean, I should have known that he was going to be there. I mean, Viz is simply a few miles away. And I had not emailed him for nearly a year at that time that I saw him. And I was scared. I was like, oh shit, look, it's the dude that I've been avoiding emailing because I was so ashamed that I had taken a break. Even though he's the one that told me to take the break. When it comes to my daily life, this life of a mangaka, I don't just draw. I promise I'm a human being. I love traveling as much as I can, and I'm very lucky that, you know, I do get to travel and see different conventions and meet different people and hear different perspectives. And when I'm not traveling, when I'm not going out and meeting other people, I have my cats that I can play with and I can love, Miso and Sis. They motivate me to work harder because I want to give them a better life, and they remind me that it's okay to rest, to step away from the desk and to be human for a little while. I have a wealth of manga that I need to read and catch up on. I also have YouTube videos to make and experiences to share. And maybe one day I can have other mangaka on my channel and they can share their experiences. I can pick their brain for a little bit. I hope to make something someday that people can say is worthy of existing, be it a manga or a program to support mangaka. Maybe an initiative to help the mangaka of future generations get a footing and open that door that I mentioned earlier. Even if I never get to enjoy the fruits of that labor, I'd like to be a light for others. Thank you as well to my patrons. I am infinitely grateful for your support, your words of encouragement. I love getting to see you guys comment on my posts. If anyone would like to join my Patreon, you can find links in the description as well as pinned comment. It's only $3 a month for everything. If not, that's perfectly okay too. I would appreciate a like, and if this was your first video with me, don't forget to subscribe so that you can see more. And I will see you in the next Diary of a Mangaka. Thank you for watching.